Solid geometry. All of the geometry that we have done up till now is called plane geometry. That's because it takes place in the plane or in two dimensions. It has length and it has width. In plane geometry, you can find length, width, and area. We're moving on now to solid geometry, which has three dimensions. It has length, width, and height. And in solid geometry, you can find volume. I've got some examples of some solid figures here. We've got three basic shapes in solid geometry. One is called a prism. These three examples would be examples of prisms. You can identify a prism because the shape of its bottom and its top is the same. You can see in every case the bottom and the top are exactly the same size. The second type we have are pyramids. Pyramids come to a point on the top. So examples of pyramids would be the square-based pyramid and the cone. And finally we have spheres, which are a class by themselves. In the case of a prism, which we're going to look at first, in order to find the volume, you're always going to look at the area of the bottom times the height. In each case, we'll take the area of the bottom times the height to find the volume. Look at our first chart. It's an example of finding a rectangular or square-based prism. Now we're going to find the volume of this particular cube, and we know it's a cube because its dimensions are all the same. We have 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet. And when we find our volume, we're going to measure it in cubic feet. When you look at this example, a cubic foot is 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot. It's a cube that's 1 foot on all of its edges. So when we look at this, we know the area of the base is a square, so it would be a side times a side for the area of the base. And the height is exactly the same in a cube, so it would be times the third side. If you're finding the volume of a cube, the formula is the side to the third power, because it represents one side times the second side times the height, which is the third side. Only on a cube can you do this because all of the dimensions are the same. In our example, we have the edge being 3 feet long. So we would say the volume is equal to 3 cubed. 3 to the third power means 3 times 3 times 3, so the volume is equal to 27. Since we're talking about volume, we're going to label our answer in cubic feet. Now to check if our answer is right, we're going to look at our drawing. We see that each one of these blocks is represented by 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot. We've divided into 3 equal spaces on all the sides. You can see the top layer of this block clearly. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 blocks. So there are 9 blocks in the top layer. Each one of these layers has 9 blocks. So I know 9 plus 9 plus 9 is 27 of the blocks. And each of those blocks is 1 cubic foot. So I can be confident in my answer of 27 cubic feet. This problem can actually be represented in another way. We know that 3 feet is equal to 1 yard. So this cube, in addition to being 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet, we could also say is 1 yard by 1 yard by 1 yard. 1 yard by 1 yard by 1 yard would give us 1 cubic yard as a volume. We know that we've got 1 cubic yard here, but we also know that it's equal to 27 cubic feet. So we know that 1 cubic yard has exactly the same value as 27 cubic feet. In our next example, we find it is also a prism. We know it's a prism because the base and the top have the same shape, in this case, a rectangle. We know that in a prism, we're always going to find the area of the base and multiply it times the height to find the volume. Since the base is rectangular, we know its area is length times width. We're going to take the area of the base times the height to find the volume for any prism. So in the case of a rectangular prism, it's length times width times height. Now in our specific example, we have the measurements of 3 inches, 6 inches, and 3 inches. So when I'm looking for the volume of this particular example, I'll notice that it has the dimensions of 3, 6, and 3 inches. So the volume of this prism will be the length, which is 6 inches, times the width, which is 3 inches, times the height, which is also 3 inches. When I multiply these together, I get 54 cubic inches. In other words, I have 54 cubes in there that are 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch. You can check your problem again by looking at the top layer. You have 18 cubes in the top layer, and you have 3 layers, each that have 18 cubes. 3 layers, each with 18 cubes, would total 54 cubes, or 54 cubic inches for the volume. When we measure volume in English units, some of the common units we use are cubic inch, cubic foot, cubic yard, and cubic mile. When we measure volumetrically, we use the following units in addition to others: cubic millimeter, cubic centimeter, cubic meter, and cubic kilometer. Our next example has to do with a cylinder. A cylinder is a prism as well. We know that both bases are the same. We have a circle on the bottom as well as a circle on the top, so it qualifies as a prism. When we consider the cylinder in our chart and we're going to find the area, we see that it's marked H for the height and R for the radius. We're going to go ahead and find the general formula for the volume of a cylinder. Since a cylinder is a prism with a circular base, we're going to find the area of the base and multiply it times the height. The area of the base is the area of a circle. It's pi times the radius squared. If we multiply that base times the height, we will find the volume for a cylinder. We see that the volume is pi times the radius squared, or the area of the base, times h, the height of the cylinder. In our specific example, we have a radius of 5 millimeters and a height of 12 millimeters. So if we want to find the volume of that particular cylinder, we'll take the volume is equal to pi times the radius, which is 5, squared, times the height, which is given to be 12. I'm going to move to my calculator and use the calculator to do this computation. Put in pi 3.14 times 5 squared, the radius squared, times the height of 12, and we find our volume is 942, or 942 cubic millimeters. So a cylinder acts exactly as any other kind of prism. You find the area of the base times the height, and you can find the volume, which in this case was 942 cubic millimeters.
This is a water tank, and the height of it from the top to the bottom measures 11 feet. Its diameter measures 5 feet. What is the volume of this water tank? Remember, 1 cubic foot of water is equivalent to 7.48 gallons. Let's do the math. The height of the tank is 11 feet, and diameter measures 5 feet. And we want to find the volume. Volume equals pi times radius squared times the height. Let's put in the numbers. Volume equals 3.14 times the radius squared. The diameter is 5 feet, so the radius equals 2.5 feet. So it's 2.5 squared times the height, that's 11 feet, times 11. Let's go to the calculator. 2.5 radius squared. Again, all I have to do is hit x over squared over here. It gives me the number. That's 6.25. So it's the volume equals 3.14 times 6.25 times 11. So let's do that. We have that already in there. So 6.25 times 11 times 3.14 equals, so the volume is 215.875. Volume equals 215.875 cubic feet. So that tank, 11 feet high, 5 feet in diameter, contains 215.875 cubic feet of water. So 1 cubic foot of water, remember, is 12 inches by 12 inches, and that container holds 7.48 gallons. That's 1 cubic foot of water. So we have to multiply this number by 7.48 times 7.48 equals, so that container holds 1,615 gallons. of water. So that entire container of 11 feet by 5 feet in diameter holds 1,615 gallons of water.